1948 से 52 तक मुस्लिम्स का क्या पोजीशन था वो बताए। वो बताते वक्त थोड़े आंख से आंसू जा रहे थे। बताए कि हर मुस्लिम्स रजाकार ही समझते थे सब। वो बोले कि ऐसा माहौल हो गया था कि तमाम मुस्लिम्स को रजाकार से, वो आंखों से आंसू जा रहे थे उनके। और उसके बाद तो ऐसे वर्बल, तो वो वर्बल सोर्स है, उसको हम इनकार नहीं कर सकते, हम उससे डिनाई नहीं कर सकते। फखरुल मुल्क के जो भी पोते थे, जो मौजम हुसैन थे, उनका जो स्टेटमेंट है वो बिल्कुल करेक्ट था। क्योंकि हिस्ट्री को तोड़ना मोड़ना, हिस्ट्री को पब्लिक के सामने बयान करने से, मैं ये चाहती हूँ हमारा आने वाला जनरेशन खराब हो जाएगा, हमारा आने वाला जनरेशन एंटी फीलिंग्स हो जाएंगे, हमारा आने वाला जनरेशन बहुत लिबरल हो जाएगा। पेरेंट्स का डर खौफ नहीं रहेगा उन लोगों को, क्योंकि एक आदमी अगर एक के खिलाफ होता तो उसका माइंड डाइवर्ट हो जाता, उन्हें एंटी हो जाएगा, तो कल तुम अपने बच्चों को भी संभालना मुश्किल हो जाएगा। तो ना सिर्फ बच्चे बल्कि पूरे देश का सवाल है। तो देश के बच्चों को अच्छा मैसेज दो, अच्छी भाईचारगी दो, क्योंकि गंगा जमनी तहजीब तो हमारी हैदराबाद की तहजीब है और हमारा हिंदुस्तान सबसे अच्छा हिंदुस्तान है। यहाँ पर कभी ऐसा तफरका नहीं हुआ था, ऐसे डिस्टर्बेंसेस कभी नहीं हुए थे, ऐसा फर्क हमारे हिंदुस्तान में कभी नहीं हुआ था। अगर आप तारीख उठा के देखिए, ओरिजिनल सोर्स पढ़िए, हमारे पास 700 मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट्स है। मैंने 2 मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट्स का ट्रांसक्राइब किया, तारीख सुल्तान मोहम्मद कुतुब शाह और मासिर निजामी जो कि लाला मंसाराम की है। पढ़ के देखिए आप, किसी जगह पर भी ना हिंदू ना मुसलमान ना सिख ईसाई किसी का नाम मेंशन नहीं है पूरे मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट्स में, कोई मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट्स में मेंशन नहीं है, कोई डिफरेंसेस नहीं है। तो मैं रिक्वेस्ट कर रही हूँ आपके स्कॉलर्स को भी कि आर्काइव्स के टॉपिक लीजिए। हम हुआ तो थोड़े दिन में हम वो लिस्ट भी सत्यनारायण साहब को भी भेजूंगी, मैं एक सुधारानी को भी भेजूंगी, अच्छे अच्छे टॉपिक्स लिख के भेजूंगी जो बच्चों को दीजिए। बच्चे आर्काइव्स का रिकॉर्ड लेंगे, क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट भी 1 करोड़ रुपए दी, वो भी पूरा डिजिटाइजेशन वर्क हो रहा, तो और उसके कैटलॉग भी तैयार हो रहे। तो जितना हो सकता है उसके कैटलॉग तैयार करेंगे। आगे भी मैं आर्काइव्स की खिदमत करने के लिए तैयार हूं, क्योंकि अब तेलंगाना में कर्सिव स्टाइल ऑफ राइटिंग और शिकिस्ता राइटिंग, सुल्स राइटिंग पढ़ने वाला कोई नहीं है। मैं अब जब तक जिंदा हूं मैं एक पढ़ने वाली हूं, तो मैं बराबर खिदमत करने तैयार हूँ गवर्नमेंट की। पेपर चाहिए हमको। जी अभी तो बहुत बड़ा पेपर है।
Yes, yeah, Zarur. That is Zarina madam. When she speaks with authority. She speaks on the basis of documentary evidence. So there's no what you call hodgepodge evidence, on the basis of primary sources. So for the young scholars, it's very, very important that you should know that your research must be conducted purely on the basis of primary sources which are available in the state archives. She has given us very good, information about the sources, source materials that are available, and the young researchers must take advantage of that. The second important point that she said was that this Ganga Jamuna Tehzeeb, which is actually ingrained in the Deccani nationalism, so to speak. Telangana has this distinct identity. I mean, I always argue that, the kind of distinction that we draw between the Aryavarta and the Dakshiнаpada, where in Aryavarta, the classical Aryan, civilization flourished, where the Varna system took deep roots. But, in the Deccan, including Hyderabad, the Varna system, the Varna ideology did not, take such roots. Therefore, it is always, syncretic, kind of a culture, drawn from the Adivasis, the peasants, the artisans, those communities. So therefore, this concept of Tehzeeb is very, very much ingrained in the Telangana society and the way the social formation took place in the region. And we are very thankful to you, madam, for enlightening us about the valuable sources in the state archives. Thank you very much. Now I call upon Dr. T. Vivek to make his presentation on Unsung Heroes of Hyderabad.
Good afternoon, one and all. I would like to begin my presentation with a caveat that I represent Telangana Council of Historical Research, which is a civil society initiative. So it's an eclectic body of people comprising people retired from civil services and people, some bureaucrats, some history enthusiasts, some history scholars, and so on and so forth. This initiative is primarily to take history to people. History, for some strange reason, has remained confined to places like this. So therefore, we thought we would take history to people, and then that explains Telangana Council of Historical Research and its origin. As part of this initiative, we have been organizing symposia, seminars, and have also been, with the support of some generous people, hearing out some YouTube talks and all that. For the last couple of years, we have been particularly trying to focus on Deccan history and in particular, history of Hyderabad. And within that history of Hyderabad, we have been looking at people who remained incognito for various reasons. And of course, you all know the kind of history that we read is highly Indo-Gangetic plain-centric. If at all we read anything about Cholas, Cheras, Pandyas, and probably a bit of South Indian history that we read is more condescending in its nature. So therefore, I think there is a lot of asymmetry in the kind of history that is being written and that is being taught in our colleges and universities. So it is all the more important for people like us, particularly in this part of the country, to claim our rightful place in the pages of history. So the Telangana Council of Historical Research is doing its bit. We are grateful to people who are coming forward to support us. And we have the huge benefit of the intellectual support of Professor Hadappa Satyanarayana Garu, who is here with us, and he is also an office bearer of TCHR. Now, this particular paper which I am going to present primarily focuses on 4 important people who actually belong to Apna Hyderabad and who somehow, for very strange reasons, remained, as I said, incognito, and history has actually forgotten about them. And even if there are some references here and there, probably in books like National Book Trust and other places, it is just in passing. It is just in passing. So therefore, consciously, we have been conducting, this event, such as, symposia and seminars, to bring to light and to, put them in proper perspective and the kind of contribution that they have made to the freedom struggle, and also to the whole question of, as the speakers before me have said, about issues of autonomy, issues of, state control, and so on and so forth. I would like to basically begin my presentation by saying the kind of history is, actually characterizes the kind of society that we live in. So in this context, I am reminded of the famous observation of E.H. Carr, who says, and I quote, "There is no more significant pointer to the character of a society than the kind of history it writes or fails to write." So in that sense, if we fail to write a history of people who have actually contributed significantly to the various developments in history, we are also failing in our duty to give them their due place and also to take pride in our own history. So therefore, in that sense, the writing of history becomes very, very important. And it is, of course, already, it's quite well known for quite a few of you history scholars here, that history is what historian writes, which means the selection of facts. The selection of facts itself becomes very important and a very critical function. But then when you select facts, the facts by themselves do not speak. They are like a, amorphous sack. So you have to put something into it. What is that something? That something is your interpretation. So therefore, to make that sack stand, the historian has to infuse some interpretation into those facts and see a connection between apparently disparate set of facts. And that is how history is constructed. So in this context, history is becoming more of, science rather than something which can be classified as an art. All the more, if you look at the kind of attempts that are being made today, particularly as we come across, the Indus Valley civilization and all the recent excavations that we come across, they are even going up to the level of, genetic analysis, where people, what kind of genes they had, DNA analysis, carbon dating, and so on and so forth, which actually brings us to the question that history is not merely some kind of a he story, as the people used to think. History is always he story, the he plus the story. It is far from it actually. It actually ceased to be his story, and now it is actually an unfolding of the entire human civilization as such. So therefore, this being the context, I would like to bring to your attention the 4 important people who actually contributed very significantly to the freedom movement, and they are our own Apna Hyderabadi people. So in the first place, Madam Zarina had already mentioned in passing about Turebaz Khan, and given the constraint of time, I would give a broad sweep of all the 4 personalities and the way they have contributed to the freedom movement. So Turebaz Khan is actually, he was a kind of a tornado, if you could describe his personality. And the year is 1987. It was a very tumultuous period, and particularly the history of Hyderabad has received a stepmotherly treatment, because somehow the historians have looked at Deccan area, and particularly the period of Nizam, as backwaters of history, primarily because he was a faithful ally of the British. He carried that tag called he was a faithful ally. So therefore, somehow the historians really did not pay much attention to what was happening in Hyderabad. So this is also one of the reasons why all the 4 personalities which I am going to talk about now in passing, they also remained outside the pages of history. And the tremors of Sipai Mutiny were felt in the state of Hyderabad, as all of you know. And then some of the Sipais who had deserted from Buldana area arrived in Hyderabad under the leadership of Jemedar Chida Khan, with the hope of receiving protection from the government of Hyderabad. Please note. But the Hyderabad government had already offered a reward for apprehending Chida Khan. So no sooner Chida Khan had arrived in Hyderabad, the Salarjung I, the Prime Minister of Hyderabad, got him arrested and sent him over to the residency for trial. This residency, which is our Koti Women's College today. So this created a great commotion in the city, and people congregated at Mecca Masjid on 17th July 1857. And Salarjung, on hearing the congregation at Mecca Masjid, sent a body of Arab guards to disperse the crowd and assured the resident that he need not apprehend any danger. The people of Hyderabad appealed to the Nizam, Afzalud-Dawla, for the release of Chida Khan. However, it was of no avail. After this, people under the leadership of Maulvi Alauddin and Turebaz Khan stormed the residency on 17th July at around 4 p.m. And Maulvi Alauddin was in the forefront of the attack, along with Rohilla commander, none other than Turebaz Khan. So there ensued a gun battle, and in that gun battle, about 6 people died. And then the kind of casualties that were taking place made them rethink about, the kind of engagement, armed engagement that was going on, they were far, say, overpowered. And particularly, from the residency, the gunpowder was very strong. So the casualties were more on this side. So as a result, they called it off. But then when Turebas Khan tried to, leave the place, he was arrested. And then later on, he was apprehended at our own, place called Tupran near Bongir. And Maulvi Alauddin, on the other hand, was banished from the Hyderabad state, and he was sent to the Andamans, which is also known as Kalapani. There is something, very interesting about Alauddin. Alauddin is basically a Maulvi. And please imagine a Maulvi, getting inspired by the, feeling of, freedom and fighting for freedom. He was actually residing in Nalgonda, and he was born around 1824. He is a resident of Nalgonda. And then he moved to Hyderabad, got a memorandum signed by nearly as many as 300 people. And then to join the war of independence and to drive the British out from Hyderabad. He instigated Rohilla soldiers to storm the residency, which is our present women's college. He was arrested, but and also tried by British India. Despite the fact that he was a Hyderabadi and committed an offense in Hyderabad, he was tried under the British law. So he should have been tried under the Hyderabad Penal Code. But then as is the year of death. But then there are also some, particularly our organization, I must also thank at this moment the painstaking research made by our office bearer, Captain Panduranga Reddy Garu, who conducted, who conducted, research, and then he stumbled upon evidence that he was even alive as late as 1887. And this is one gentleman, actually a Maulvi of all the people, who was inspired by the spirit of freedom. And then he was in the forefront. And then in spite of his good conduct and all that, interestingly, the Hyderabad state did not allow him to come back. And then that was one of the reasons why he ultimately died because of old age in Andamans itself. Because when once the Hyderabad state did not allow, then British government also did not see any reason why he should be released from Kalapani. So therefore, he spent his last days there, and he laid down his life there itself. And there is another important person, who should be remembered, and who also received very stepmotherly treatment in the pages of history. That is none other than our own, Abid Hassan Safrani. His original name, of course, is Zainul Abidin, one of those namesake who ruled Kashmir. Zainul Abidin, one of those great, very liberal Sufi kind of ruler at that time. Now about Hassan, in fact, we know very little. It is important that I should bring it to your notice that recently his niece, Madam, I forget her name. Recently, she released a book. The release function was there in Vidyaranya School. I think in tomorrow's valedictory, she's also going. Yes.
Maybe.
Talking about Ismat Mehdi.
Ismat Mehdi. I had the good fortune of talking with her on that occasion. And she brought out a book. And for those of you who are really interested in knowing more about Abid Hasan Safrani, you may lay your hands on that book. It gives different, dimensions of Abid Hasan life and his association with Subhash Chandra Bose. Yeah. And he is credited with, giving us the slogan, Jai Hind. And in that book, one can actually get more details as to, nearly for 3 months, how he actually traveled along with Subhash Chandra Bose in what is called the submarine, and the kind of, difficulties, the kind of, troubles that both of them had undergone is something to be read, to appreciate. Then the task of actually coining this was given to Abid Hasan by Subhash Chandra Bose, because Bose had, reposed so much confidence in him and his ability. And Abid Hasan also tried various other slogans. In fact, he initially started with a slogan called "Hello," but that was not really impressive, and it seemed more, very trivial. And then he also tried with the idea of Sat Sri Akal and so many other things. But then Subhash Chandra Bose, as he was very, fastidious, he was very hard to please kind of a person. So therefore, he somehow did not approve of any of those things. And then Abid Hasan racked his brains and finally came out with the slogan called Jai Hind. In fact, Jai Hind is actually a little shorter form of the word called Jai Hindustan Ki. Jai Hindustan Ki. So because Jai Hindustan Ki was a little longish, so it was again, condensed into Jai Hind, which is still, a form of salutation even in our armed forces and police forces. So that is the very significant contribution of, Abid Hasan. And in fact, Subhash Chandra Bose actually started one in a broadcasting station, which was called Azad Hind Radio. And interestingly, the station used to call the listeners 3 times, saying Azad Hind Radio calling, and it called itself as Voice of India. And the broadcast used to start with the rendition of, I may be permitted to quote an Urdu couplet, though my Urdu may not be really that good. If there are any, mistakes, kindly excuse me. But nevertheless, I will also give a rough English translation of it. Shahidon ki chitawon par lagenge har bhara mele, watan par walon ko yahan namo nishane honge. So roughly translated, it means there will be fairs. Fair means here melas at the funerals of martyrs, but there won't be any names or signs of those who die for the nation. And this was the, signature tune of Azad Hind Radio. So Abid Hasan was, our own Hyderabadi boy. He actually studied in our own grammar school, and he spent his, formative years in Hyderabad, and then moved to Germany to actually study engineering. And then, perchance, he happened to meet Subhash Chandra Bose, and Bose was impressed with his, abilities. And then he took him into his, inner circle. So this is one person whose, contribution also remains to be brought to light. And I would call upon all the, academics and scholars to lay their hands on the original sources. And the book which, his niece has brought out recently can also be a good source to, reconstruct the significant contribution of Safrani. Lastly, but not the least, we have just, celebrated our Independence Day the other day. And I don't know, it's a quirk of history that somehow the credit of designing the national flag has gone to someone else, rather than the lady who is none other than our own Hyderabadi lady, the granddaughter of Sir Akbar Haidari. Her name is Suraya Tayyabji. Suraya Tayyabji, actually, he was quite an accomplished personality. She was multifaceted, multi-talented, and given her background, upbringing, and all that, she learned many things which women of that particular age and era did not dare actually to go or think about it. She actually was a good rider, horse rider. She was an accomplished painter. She was an accomplished fashion designer. Yeah, almost. She was an accomplished fashion designer and all that. So when the task of designing the national flag, was given to Dr. Rajendra Prasad, the task was entrusted to once again, her husband. Whose name is Badruddin Tayyabji. And Badruddin Tayyabji, in turn, quickly turned to none else than his own spouse, whose credentials are well known. So this lady did not lose much time. She tried various permutations and combinations, and then the kind of the flag that we see today with saffron on top, the white in the middle, and the green at the bottom, with the Ashoka Dharma Chakra, the 24 folks Dharma Chakra in the middle, is singularly her contribution, and about which there are, of course, no two views about it. But then, as I said, the history is what historians write, and particularly in the context of the kind of attempts that are being made today, trying to add colors to history and trying to what people famously, quite popularly known as othering the other community. In the context of othering the other community, I think it is important that we should acknowledge the contribution of our own Hyderabadi people to the freedom struggle, and perhaps institutions like Open University, or probably institutions like Council of Higher Education, to take note of the contribution of these important people, and then try and see that our young men and women are taught about the contribution of these people. So I think this is broadly the attempt this TCHR has made in making or in bringing to the notice of the people about those who remained outside the pages of history. So this is a small initiative that we have taken, and we hope we succeeded in creating some awareness. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Vivek sir, for making a brief but informative account of the unknown freedom fighters of Hyderabad state. Because in our mainstream historiography, the princely states are in fact sidelined, and more so with regard to Hyderabad, because our historians also could not really do much earlier because of the paucity of the sources and the paucity constraints of the source material being in Persian and Urdu. But nowadays, we are relying more and more on English sources that are available in our state archives, and bringing to light, for instance, the role played by the Hyderabadis in 1857 struggle, and then Suraya Tayyabji and others. I think we are trying to fill in the gaps that are there in our history. Of course, our Hyderabad or Telangana history has also been sidelined, by the other, in the combined state of Andhra Pradesh. But anyway, now attempts are being made by historians of this region, people like Bukya Bangya. The youngsters are doing pioneering work, and we hope their research will bring will throw more light on the hidden aspects of the history of Telangana. I'm really thankful to the organizers, to Sudha and our team. If there are any one or two questions we can take, if any of you have any queries to make on the three presentations, you are welcome. So we can spend 5 minutes. Yeah, please. Madam.
This is with the Bangladesh, sir. Specifically, when you said about the Adivasi, the question of Adivasi, I have a query regarding how you see the state model of development, specifically with Adivasi. The model of development, because in the name of development, as you rightly pointed, a lot of work has been put over there. So the very question about the model of development in Adivasi place and Sanskritizing the indigenous groups, how do you see that as a researcher? Thank you.
Can I also have?
Please.
I'll sit and ask.
Please, are you? Please.
This is again to Kavya. I was wondering whether the Adivasis were fighting for identities or for their livelihoods, for their land. Now, the way identities have come up later now, because, as I was telling this morning, Sarvai Pavana, BRAOU, they have added. So for Adivasis, I think it was a question of livelihood, their life and death question. It was not so much, I think, I don't know, but is it a question of identity as Adivasis?
Okay. Should I? Yeah, please.
Okay, actually, both are very big questions and need separate lectures, each one. This development question, I mean, basically, what we can imagine put in operation was very much colonial in the sense during the colonial period there was this understanding that these groups are still at the bottom of the civilization, and they were not on par with the other societies. So they need a separate treatment and all that. That is how this protectionism concept had come into picture. And basically, the whole Adivasi development question designed by the anthropologists. So I call it anthropological developmentism. So what is anthropological developmentalism? Means seeing this society as primitive and poor and kind of thing, and you address them like that. So problem with this is you don't see them as equal human beings. So that's the serious problem. And actually, as I said in my presentation also, Adivasi's question is not really poverty question. It's basically political question. So then you may ask, is it different? Then again, I relate your question also, madam. So this political and developments are not separate. They are actually interlinked together. So and then when you are raising political question, this imagination, articulation, or what you call agency comes from the culture. So culture becomes a kind of a weapon to organize your community and fight against the injustice that has been happening. So it's a kind of it's the case with the all communities. Their respective culture becomes a kind of assert or a kind of base for their new consciousness, and that is how communities actually survive in history. So we cannot see
culture and politics and development as separate segments. So they are very much interlinked, and we have to understand them in a very holistic perspective. Thank you so much.
So thank you very much. I thank all the three paper presenters, and I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to present all this. So thank you very much.
Oh, my goodness.
1 second.
Sorry. Now,
thank you, sir. I thank my professor and supervisor and mentor and guru for being with us, and he's kind enough to accept our invitation to be with us and preside over the session. Rather, 2 sessions, clubbing the 2 sessions together. One is on subaltern nationalism, and the other one is on freedom struggle in Hyderabad state. And we are very highly indebted to you, sir. And I thank the paper presenters, Bukya Bangya, my friend. It's always a feast, intellectual feast to listen to him. Like, he throws light upon the notion of nation and, whose nation it is, and kind of, multiple voices heard through the concept of freedom and the concept of movement, national movement, to whom he was. So I have heard him, and he made a very seminal contribution to the existing knowledge, domain of knowledge about the Goan nationalism. And thank you so much for being with us and presenting a very good paper. And I thank my friend Jarina Madam. I requested Madam actually to precisely, like, there are several scholars, research scholars here, who want to work upon the archival sources, mostly the history students. So gathering the sources from them and accessing the sources, the original sources, than depending on the secondary sources. So most of our scholars keep on asking, where do we get the sources? Then I said, I'll bring her so that she'll give an answer to it. The kind of how many morning also, Aishitam Sridhar was talking about there is a plethora of literature, like the existing sources there, mostly in the archival, because thanks to her, she has been making efforts to preserve them, but they're in the verge of depleting. So students, they should make use of it. So she thanks for appraising about the various several sources about the history, retrieving history from about the Hyderabad freedom struggle. And thanks to Vivek sir for bringing about several unsung heroes like of Hyderabad, and who made a contribution, but because Telangana history itself is not much researched upon then, because it got prejudiced and it's been sidelined for several long years. Now it is seeing the light of the day, and we wish many more. Telangana Council of Historical Research is doing wonderful job, sir. And thank you so much, because I have been part of many of the seminars contributing to the women's aspect of Hyderabad state. Where they conducted a seminar on women's education, a seminar on unsung heroes, and several other aspects. And the Indian flag, there is one more seminar. So this contribution of Hyderabad to the national movement and the contribution of Hyderabad leaders, Telugus and non-Telugus, to the national movement is not much discussed. And we have to see, Madam also, Vanidevi Madam insisted that we have to bring out or unearth the heroes, the earthly heroes of Hyderabad state. So this is precisely, thank you so much, Vivek sir, for being with us. And we'll say goodbye to you with a small felicitations from our side. Please accept our felicitations. Thank you. I thank our Srinivas Vadanam, our Dean and Director EMRC, the constant source of inspiration. Like, he's been with us for these difficult days of 1 week and 10 long days, arranging everything, and for being introducing the guests and being a discussant. Thank Kanakadurga for taking out the points as a report here.
Right. Oh, thank you.
paper. There you email.
Madam, please.
ముందుకు వస్తే
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I will. Now the session is over, and very soon, 5 minutes, within 5 minutes or 10 minutes, we'll assemble here for the spectacular program on warrior women of India. And I request all of